When I was 11, we moved into an old colonial-style farmhouse in Virginia. We left after a year. From the very beginning, strange things happened at night when I'd be asleep. I'd often wake up to my pillows being moved, lying all over me, or even scattered across the floor. I was never awake to see it happen. Whoever was doing it must have known when I was asleep. Additionally, something else would occur which disturbed me deeply, but infuriated my dad. I woke up to go down to the basement one morning and screamed when I saw it. An old wooden folding chair was completely opened up, just sitting against the bottom step. It looked like an invisible person was seated in it, leering up at me as I stood atop the staircase. It was just a chair, but its positioning right at the bottom of those steps overwhelmed me with dread. Eventually, Dad would begin storing it in the incinerator room. One unforgettable night, I was babysitting my little sister while our parents went out. I heard a strange noise coming from underneath us. When I muted the living room TV, I could hear the legs of the wooden chair sluggishly being dragged across the concrete basement floor in the darkness. Immediately, my sister and I ran out to our room, screaming, and jumped under the covers, cradling each other and shaking. The mere image of that thing trawling across the floor of the cellar in pitch darkness on its own still gives me chills. I feel bad for whoever fly on the wall was down there to see it, or hear it. The pillow occurrences started happening to my sister. One night, I woke up to Anna making strange noises in her sleep. When I sat up, I watched the pillow tumbling to the floor from her bed and cried out, "Mum and Dad." We moved into their room like a pack of rats for the last few months, and the nighttime happenings ceased before we eventually moved out. It's been 18 years since, but earlier today, my mum called me and said, in a rather uneasy tone, "Honey, you need to Google our old house." But she didn't tell me why. I never thought to do it, so when I clicked for the results on that address, I began sinking inside, and my heart began to race. The newspaper clipping read as follows, paraphrased. December 10th, 1979. Gruesome Jamestown crime scene. Neighbours report strange smell at Summit Drive. Police discover 7-year-old girl and 8-year-old boy deceased in their beds, and 29-year-old father of both, Robert Mast, hanging by rafter in the basement. Now I know what I was trying to do with those pillows. It was the first time I met my girlfriend's parents. I even brought a Boston cream pie that I made personally. It was a lavish, Victorian-style remodeled home, 3 stories high. Of course I was nervous. Myself walking through law school at Notre Dame, or working as a waiter for mere change, to make a good impression. With their wealth and prestige in the community, I wasn't sure how they'd take my upbringing in a broken home riddled with addiction. When Lily's father mentioned my family and asked what they do, I had to be honest. My dad died and my father stays home. What does she do? Well, my mother's an addict. We don't speak anymore. There was an awkward pause, and then he said, "You know, I admire your honesty. Most people would lie about that." Then he looked at my girlfriend and raised his eyebrows in a moment of acceptance. They liked me. Then it started happening. The closet door in the corner, next to the curio cabinet. I put down my head and balled my fists in a fit of anxiety and tension. "Everything all right, Kevin?" her mother asked. "Oh, yes, I'm fine. Bit of a stomachache." We continued to chat, but the guttural pain was stabbing and sharp. "Is something wrong, honey?" asked Lily in a tone of worry. My head down, I shot her a quick, nervous glance and nodded my head affirmatively. "Excuse me, but may I use the restroom?" Her mother nodded, and they each shot each other another curious glance. I could feel the phone vibrating. I saw them notice my quick, anxious pacing. I stopped at the bottom of the double staircase to breathe. Not now, damn it. Please don't do this now. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could. I could only imagine what they're thinking. I barreled into the bathroom and shut the door, locking it behind me. I reached in my pocket. I remember exactly where I left them. On my nightstand. I'm in serious trouble. I perceived a darkness slipping into the bathroom like a poisonous gas. Realizing the severity of this moment, and depression consuming, overwhelming me, the mirror began to sweat from the heat of the water. I had to drown out any sound. I can't let them hear it. My cell phone incessantly vibrating non-stop. I reluctantly answered. I knew the phone number, and I knew what they would say. After all, it was they who saved my life time and time again. Yeah? Do it. They are the ones doing it. She lured you here. Go and check the basement. That's where the bodies are. Not now, I replied. Like you said, this is just scouting. I need them to trust me. I don't even know where the cameras are. No, we got the okay. Do it today. This is your one chance to prove to us that you're capable. You know, if I just take it, none of this would have to happen. Stop. You must remain lucid. You dope yourself up, and you're no good to any of us. This is a major score. I slipped out of the bathroom and crept back down the steps. When I saw the men peering in the windows, watching me, they had the house surrounded. If I don't listen, they'll be after me. You're back. Everything okay? Asked the father. Yeah. I apologise. I'm fine. I reached behind me to assure myself it was there. As the plain chattering resumed, sweat began to form my forehead. I was ready to pounce and end this whole charade when I felt something touch my leg and heard a faint rattling. Lily had secretly slipped her hand under the table with a prescription bottle and poured 2 pills into my hand. I momentarily paused, and when she caught my eye, she nodded, silently telling me, "Go ahead." While they weren't looking, I tossed them into my mouth and took a swig. Slowly but surely, I slipped into normality. She had my lithium all this time. Suddenly, the voices went away. The demonic, yawning faces on the walls, grimacing at me, disappeared. And when I looked at my phone, I saw that the last call I made was to Lily when I was picking her up. Since it was cold when the night was over, I went out and started the car to warm it up. If it wasn't for her, that night surely would have went different, much more gruesome. I'm so grateful to have a girlfriend who understands my condition. However, she doesn't know about my little friend, a 9mm, which I pulled from my belt behind me and slipped under the seat. From now on, I should probably hold on to my pills. Disaster averted. For now. Shell doesn't care about looks, and she's always trying to prove to people how much she doesn't care about looks. When it comes to her boyfriends. Her first boyfriend, Taylor, was her first love, and she wanted to prove to Taylor's family and friends about how his looks didn't matter to her. So, Cheryl shot Taylor in the face and completely disfigured him for life. Cheryl and Taylor still went out with each other for years, and everyone was completely overtaken by how Cheryl kept on dating Taylor. Even though he looked nothing like he did before, he got shot in the face. So, Cheryl proved to people that she doesn't care about looks when it comes to her lovers. But she wanted to prove it again. So she dumped Taylor and went out with another guy called John. And they got along so well. John was a builder, and Cheryl loved John so much, and she wanted to prove to John's family and friends about how his looks meant nothing to her. Even John was supporting Cheryl on a quest to prove people about how looks are not important. Cheryl got a knife out and permanently stabbed up John's face, completely changing it forever. She still went out with John for years on end, proving to everyone once again that looks didn't matter to her. Not only that, but she has now been in a relationship with 2 guys with questionable faces. As time went on, Cheryl wanted to prove for the 3rd time how she didn't care about looks when it came to her lovers. So she dumped John and started going out with me. She wanted to prove to my family and friends how my looks meant nothing to her, and that she decided to go out with me based on my personality. So she poured acid on my face, for which permanently destroyed my face and has been with me ever since. She has proved to everyone for the 3rd time how looks don't matter to her. Recently though, she wants to prove again how looks don't matter to her when deciding potential relationships. So I guess we're going to break up. As I watch the raindrops slide down my windows, we hit a small pothole. I turn to look around, finding we're almost home. My dad's focused on the road, driving us safely during this raging storm. I turn my focus to him and ask, "What did you think about the movie, Dad?" He takes a second to respond. Then he says, "It was good. I wish there were more scares though." I look forward and say, "I agree. And that ending, very predictable. I mean, who didn't see that coming?" As we continue discussing the horror movie we watched, I notice we are now parked in the driveway. We're home. My dad takes the keys and turns the car off. All you can hear are raindrops hitting the roof of the SUV. Before I step out, I put my hood up to prevent myself from getting wet. I get out of the car and quickly make my way inside. Tilting my head up as I run from the rain, I notice the kitchen light on. Mum must be cooking something. My dad opens the front door and heads inside. I follow him and close the door behind me once I reach him. My dad hears my mum doing dishes and looks at me to say, "Son, I'm going to quickly change into something dry. I suggest you do the same. And see if your mother needs help." I nod my head, take my shoes off near the door, and run into the hallway. As I pass the kitchen, I yell, "Hi Mum, I'll help you in a sec." No response. I hear the water running and the clashing of dishes in the sink. Now in my room, I quickly change from my wet clothes into pyjamas. I'm hoping to get some sleep once I get some food in my stomach. As I'm changing, I notice the sound of the shower. Dad must have wanted to clean up before eating. Paying no mind to anything else, I step out of my room, past the bathroom, and step into my kitchen. "Mum, what did you cook for us tonight?" With her back turned to me, my mum continues doing dishes, ignoring my question. I check the fridge for anything to eat. "Ron, Jessie, are you home?" I hear my mum shouting from the kitchen sink. "Mum, I'm right here. Are you okay?" I chuckle as I let my mum know we've been home for a while. I bend over to see what there is to eat. A scream disrupts the sound of dishes being washed. Now standing straight, I close the fridge door and look in her direction. "Mom?" I call for her, but no response. The sound of someone gagging can be heard from the kitchen sink. Slowly, I make my way to my mom. As I get closer, I see a small speaker connected to her iPhone. A recording is being played. It's her struggling. She's screaming for help. I pause the recording. Water from the sink is running, but there's no dishes in the sink. Now, standing next to whoever is in front of the sink, I look up at her face. My eyes widen. That's not Mom. This isn't human. What I see is something wearing my mum's clothes and my mum's face. Her skin is covering the face of whoever is standing there. Drops of blood escape from her face and into the sink. My body jumps as I hear a sound of thunder outside. The noise briefly takes my attention away from the intruder, focusing on the window. I look back and freeze. This stranger now has their head turned to me. Blood continues to drip, causing a tapping sound on the floor. No other movement is made. I can't move. My eyes won't look away. Every detail of this monster is now noticed. It's wearing my mom's clothes on top of whatever clothing it wears. It's taller, so her clothes don't fit well. Hiding underneath, I notice its smile. Its eyes are well hidden. All I see are two black holes. Questions flood my mind. Why us? Why my mom? Where is my mom? Where's my dad? Jessie? My dad calls for me from the hallway. My body quickly reacts and runs towards the sound of his voice. Approaching the hallway, I notice my dad. He's on the floor, bleeding, crawling towards me. My dad struggles to speak, but manages to say, "Run, Jessie." As I began to walk backwards, I found myself bumping into something. I turn around. It's him. It's her. It's whatever is hiding their face like a coward. It's looking down to me. I turn to my father and run to him. "No, stay back," he warns me as he continues crawling. I squat down to help him and notice movement in the bathroom. There's this figure, wearing all black, with no face looking at me. It's sitting on the bathroom floor, waving. With all this, I pass out. I open my eyes. I'm in my room, tucked in bed. "Mom, Dad!" I call out to my parents, hoping one of them answers. The door opens, it's dark, but I can see my dad's silhouette. "Son, are you okay?" He asks me as he walks towards me. Yeah, I'm okay. I guess I just had a bad dream." "That movie must have been scarier than I thought," I answer his question. He responds, "What movie?" I sit up from bed and turn on my lamp. "You forgot already? Remember the scary movie about..." I look up. The last thing I saw was his figure hiding behind my father's face. Another night, another nightmare. My nightly routine never changes. Staying up all night is something I've done the past few days. From the knocking to the footsteps, sleep is not a priority. Sleep is a luxury that I do not own. I didn't choose this. She gave me no choice. Mother keeps me up at night. First, it started as a reminder. Now, there's no need to remind me. She's always watching. She's always here. I know what will happen if I sleep. I know what will happen if she gets inside. I regret calling her that night. She'd been gone for so long, and I didn't want to be alone anymore. She moved on. I couldn't. I wanted her back from the dead. When I first called for her, there were no regrets. The house felt warm again. Mother felt warm again. She stayed by my side all day. She would be by my side when I ate, stayed home and left the house. That first night, when I got ready for bed, she warned me. If I sleep, she won't be here. But she won't be gone. From that moment, I stopped sleeping. As days passed, something about her was different. Whenever she smiled, it looked deceiving, almost haunting. Whenever she followed me, her breathing became harsh. When she spoke, her voice sounded deeper. Mother also doesn't sleep at night. I heard her outside my room. She would walk back and forth in the hallway and knock on my door whenever she passed. I thought I could survive this by not sleeping. But then, the hallucination started. The less I slept, the more of Mother I would see. I would hear the footsteps and the knocking in the hallway, but she'd be inside, staring at me. The worst was when I stared back. Her eyes were completely white, her teeth rotten, her nightgown torn. This isn't my mother. This is someone else, or something else. It's been a week since I've slept, and I can't tell if I'm awake or sleeping. Mother is staring at me again. I feel my eyes getting heavy. Every time I blink, she gets closer. Every time I blink, her smile gets bigger. Every time I blink, I see less of Mother. I see more of it. I see nothing. "Josh, wake up," a voice says. I open my eyes. It's my mum. I'm in my room, laying in bed. She's standing next to me with a warm smile. She says, "You had a nightmare. Are you okay?" I nod my head and close my eyes in relief. She puts her finger on the light switch and says, "Good night." I quickly open my eyes as she turns off the light. Not only am I reminded she's dead, two eyes are glowing in the dark, staring at me. My 11-year-old daughter has taken up a new hobby, taking pictures. She's become quite the photographer. Ever since I showed her how to use a camera last year, she's taken pictures of everything. In the last few months, she's been taking pictures of strangers. Whenever we go out, Lena would ask someone or a group of people if she can take a picture of them. They agreed. She wanted them to pose and smile. As innocent of a hobby this is, what was odd was that she did this with the pictures after. Lena would get the pictures printed in various sizes and frame them. To add, she would hang these pictures all over the house. It was odd to look at as I would walk around our home. The only thing I asked was that no pictures be hung in my room. After a while, I just got used to all the pictures on the walls. One night, I wake up with a huge urge to drink a glass of water. Lena always sleeps with the door open, so I decided to leave the lights off so I won't wake her. I walk to the kitchen and grab a glass from the kitchen cabinet. I head over to the water dispenser in our fridge. As I fill the glass, I look around. There's something about the dark that makes everything look creepy. With the lights off, the pictures look terrifying. The smilers in the pictures look sinister. As my attention is consumed by the photos, I feel water on my hand. The glass is overflowing and I'm making a mess on the floor. I place the glass on the kitchen counter, grab a few paper towels and clean the mess. As I get back up from cleaning, a picture catches my attention. This one was big. It must be new. I get closer. I leave the lights off as I observe it. The photo is of a person just standing there. They're smiling. Every other photo had some life to it. This one was different. It just felt different. It drew me in. I turn away from the picture to grab my glass of water and make my way back to the picture. As I return, something didn't seem right. With that same smile on the face, the head is now tilted. I didn't notice that before. If that's not weird enough, the background looks familiar. This thought kept me staring. I looked around the photo. Then, fear strikes me. As I continue looking at the background of the picture, I notice my shed. It's my backyard. From that realization, I notice something else. This isn't a picture on a wall. This is my window. The bell rings. The school halls are flooded by laughter, talking, and the opening of lockers. I roam these halls quietly. Benny approaches me. "Everything all right, George?" "Just another day at school, you know." He smiles. I consider Benny a friend. The only time we meet is in the morning, but he never fails to ask me about my day prior. As I continue walking, I hear about the gossip around the school. There's something about 3 teachers going around, not being present today. This explains the amount of substitute teachers in the halls. The bell rings again. Just as fast as we gathered, we scattered to our respective rooms. Silence now roamed these halls. I make my way to the gym. As I enter, I remember a water balloon fight was announced by the gym teachers as a fun activity to get away from traditional exercises. Excitement clouds the room. Everyone gathers and waits to begin. A large cart with water balloons makes its way to the middle of the gym. Some couldn't wait any longer. Before the gym teachers say anything about starting, water balloons were already getting thrown. As you hear laughter and joyous screams, you hear water splashing the walls and the floor. I wish I could have been more involved in this. Watching this fight continue, I notice something. Some balloons are filled with water, others filled with something different. As balloons are popping, a red liquid covers the bodies of children. Blood. In the midst of all the excitement, the water balloon fight continues, with water mixing with blood. The mixture creeps its way around the gymnasium floor. Teachers blow the whistle. Kids stop to realise what's going on. Before anything was said, a cacophony of screams ensue as kids notice a drop of blood hit the floor from above. The teachers that were absent are now hung to the ceiling of the gym. Control was lost soon after. The kids run out and stain the halls with the death of the teachers. The screams continued as kids were covered, wet with sin. I didn't leave. I watched all this happen as alarms go off. I move closer and stand over the blood of the teachers. I squat down and see my reflection. I take my hands and feel the texture this mixture creates. The blood makes it warm, comfortable. I take what's on my hands and slick my hair back. As the police and teachers stampede into the gymnasium, they catch me in the room. A policeman asks, "Sir, what are you still doing here?" I respond, "I'm the janitor." Holding a mop, I look back down at my reflection as I start cleaning this mess, hiding the smirk on my face. Photos are taken of the bodies as more people head inside the gym. I was asked questions, but my answers were not enough to help. They could check the tapes from the night prior, but the cameras haven't worked in years. Being a janitor can get boring. There isn't enough of a mess to keep me entertained anymore. I figured I could entertain myself with the teachers who stay late at the school. If I make my own mess, I'll have fun cleaning it too. In 2008, I was driving from New Orleans, Louisiana, to Eugene, Oregon. It was just me, 22, female, and my year-old pit bull in a 14-foot U-Haul truck with everything I owned crammed into the back, a fancy flip phone, and my printout of MapQuest directions. I think the first smartphones actually came out around that time, but I didn't have one. Cell phone service was also much spottier, and there were long stretches through the desert where I had zero service for hundreds of miles. I was driving a lonely stretch of highway through central Texas when I realised I hadn't seen a town or exit for a very long time. My giant U-Haul was really low on gas. Just when I'm starting to freak out and seriously run out of gas, I see a small town coming up. I pull into this town and it's tiny. I was so worried about other things that I never really did pay attention to the name of the town. But there are only about 6 streets in the whole place. I go gas up and I'm ready to get back on the road. Except, I cannot for the life of me find my way back to the highway. I circle the town about 4 times and start getting so frustrated because this is such a tiny town. How the fuck can I not find my way out? I can literally see the highway, but I can't get to it. I return to the gas station to ask for directions. Not when I got gas. I paid at the pump and never went in. When I enter for directions, there's a skinny, nondescript guy who has black hair hanging down in front of his eyes. It looks like it could use a good wash. He's not particularly creepy, but he is a little rude. He never really met my eyes. He was looking down at a magazine. He gives me directions that don't sound right at all. He's telling me to take a road that would get me to the highway in about 17 miles. For a moment, I'm dumbfounded. And I point out that I didn't drive that far to get from the highway into town. Why so far to get back to the highway? I can actually see it from the town. He's so casual, almost like I'm just an annoyance and can follow his directions or not. Why should he care? He gives me some explanation about the road curving around that doesn't really make sense. He still doesn't look at me. Just whatever, I gave you directions and I waved his hand in the direction of the floor. When I got into the parking lot, my whole body started trembling violently. My heart started racing, seemingly for no reason. I get into the truck, and as soon as I put the key in the ignition, I had bad intentions. I burst into tears. I had the most terrible feeling that, no matter how nonchalant he acted, this man had bad intentions. I didn't know that, but I knew right then and there that there was no way I was going to follow his directions. Yet this was the only store in his little town, and short of knocking on doors, no thank you, there was no one else to ask for directions. I decided I didn't give a shit if this town seemed like something dropped out of the Twilight Zone. I was going to drive around until I found my way out, even if it took all damn night. Then a big red Beater of a pickup truck, as much rust as metal, pulls up and disgorged the quintessential Texas man. Husky, huge, and in flannel and work boots. Without even thinking about it, I jumped out of the truck and approached him quickly yet warily. Looking into his eyes, I saw a kind human being, or at least I was hoping I did. I asked him if he could please give me the directions to the highway. I told him I knew it was silly, but I just couldn't seem to find my way back. He looked concerned, as I was visibly upset. So he made me laugh and very cheerfully gave me directions for a hairpin curve turn-off right at the end of a small concrete tunnel I'd passed several times. He said it often confused travellers because it was hard to see. They need to put up signs, etc. With a sinking feeling in my stomach, I asked him how far in miles was it back to the highway. He laughed and gave me a funny look. "Miles, miss? I'd say a quarter mile at most. You can see the highway from here." At this point I couldn't help it. I had to know. What happens if I drive? And I gave him the directions the man in the store had given me. He looked at me very intently and asked me how I knew about that route. It was pretty far out and usually only locals know about it. So I told him. He was quiet for a few minutes and then asked what the attendant looked like and if I had a map of the state. Nope, just my MapQuest, which wasn't very helpful in this situation. He goes to his trucks and grabs a raggedy local map from his glove box. Spreading it out for me, he traces the route I describe. The way the man from the gas station had told me to go led away from town, away from the interstate, and led to seemingly the middle of nowhere. He told me that the road did go about 17 miles, right before it dead-ended in the desert. I asked him what was out there, and he told me that it was nothing but some junk cars and a few trailers and mobile homes, all owned by the same family. This family was known locally as troublemakers, meth heads and alcoholics, and these were the nice things townspeople had to say about them. And the erstwhile clerk was part of this family and lived down that road. I'll never forget the look in his eyes as he told me this. He also told me that I was smart to listen to my instincts, and he told me to be careful travelling out there. I don't know if the man from the gas station wanted what was in the back of my U-Haul or what was in the driver's seat, but thankfully I didn't have to find out. Oh, and I learned that sometimes angels look like ruddy-haired Texans with scruffy faces and rusty pickups. Thank you, random Texan stranger. You really saved my ass, and I will always remember you with tons of love. Sorry I didn't ask your name. You're forever Texas to me now. Thank you everyone for your time and reading about my crazy encounter and all the wonderful comments and awards. I'm trying to answer to everyone to show my appreciation, but it may take a minute. I got a huge response. Y'all don't even know how many times I almost didn't post this. Thank you for all the kindness and well wishes. Love y'all.